and hotel management. So they too need to be recognized, and we do that right now. So thank you very much, Sweden, for the support that has been forthcoming from you. As we said, it is time to sound the keynote. As has already been mentioned, our speaker has traveled some distance to be here. And he's an alumnus of London University, and he graduated in economics, and he's a fellow of the Royal Aeronautical Society, and also has been accorded honorary doctorates from the University of Middlesex, as well as an honorary degree from the Newcastle Business School at Northumbria University. Fairly recently, that's in 2014, he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth in her New Year's honors list, and also this is in recognition of services rendered to our British prosperity as well as to the aviation industry. And he has done much in the aviation industry. In fact, he has been conferred an Officier de la Légion d'honneur by the French government for services to transport and aviation. And in the year 2009 was awarded the gold from the Royal Aeronautical Society for his contribution to civil aerospace. And again, in 2011, the Airline Business and Flight Global Achievement Awards recognized him as Leader of the Year, and also later received the Center for Aviation, that's CAPA, Legends Award, and was inducted into its Hall of Fame. So we are able to appreciate that he has spent all of his professional life in this realm of aeronautics. And in fact, he served for a while with British Caledonian and then with Gulf Air in Bahrain. But in 1985, he ended up in Dubai, where he became a member of the founding team of Emirates as head of airline planning. Subsequently, in 2003, he was president of Emirates Airline, which is now one of the world's fastest growing airlines, currently serving some 150 destinations in 85 countries. And also, interestingly, has the world's largest Boeing 777 fleet. Now, he's the chairman of, also relevant to what he has done in contributing to the community, he's the chairman of the Emirates Airline Foundation, which he was instrumental in founding, and that organization strives to improve the welfare of disadvantaged children around the globe. And some of you might even remember that Sir Timothy Clark had something to do with Sri Lankan Airlines for a while. But however, our keynote speaker, Sir Timothy Clark, please welcome.
At Emirates, we're inventing the future of air travel, anticipating and exceeding our customers' expectations, setting the highest standards of service, innovating to enrich the customer experience, and challenging convention. Our cosmopolitan, considerate cabin crew are drawn from over 130 nationalities and speak up to 60 languages. Our service has won over 500 international awards for excellence. We have one of the youngest, most modern and fuel-efficient fleets in the sky. The Emirates A380 is the flagship of our fleet, transforming the global travel experience, capturing the imagination, and bringing back the romance and glamour of air travel. Our long-range Boeing 777s set new standards in efficiency and speed. Enjoy ultimate comfort and a superior in-flight experience. We're a world connector, appealing to the hearts and minds of a new world of global travelers. Our home, Dubai, is where the world connects to a network stretching across 6 continents. A hub that is truly at the center of the new world. The more of our world we see, the richer we become.
Mr. Prime Minister, Excellencies, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for that amazing lead-in. I didn't realize I had so many accolades, frankly, but anyway, that's how it is. Let me say that every time I visit Sri Lanka, the one thing I always walk away with is a lasting impression of warmth and hospitality. In fact, it often feels like a second home for me here. Over the years, I've had the privilege to meet and get to know many Sri Lankans. They're my friends, including Sanath Ugwata, who has so graciously invited me to speak this evening at the Hotels Association of Sri Lanka. And I genuinely believe that Sri Lankans are amongst the most friendly and warm-hearted people on the planet. That's a wonderful asset and a natural selling point for a country that's looking to do tourism to generate jobs and drive economic development. Today is October the 23rd. 6 months and 2 days since the horrendous events on Easter Sunday. The violence and tragic loss of life was a shock to Sri Lanka and the world. In the aftermath, travel advisories cautioning tourists against visiting Sri Lanka came fast and furious. Tourist arrivals plunged and tourism activity ground to a standstill. Today, most of these travel advisories, but not all, have been rescinded or downgraded. But I understand tourism recovery has been slow. Now, without downplaying or disrespecting the human tragedy of the attacks, my message is simply this: pull together, galvanize your resources and forge ahead. Acts of terror that target tourists in major cities thankfully remain relatively rare, but they do happen. In recent years, think back on the Paris attacks of 2015, the Brussels airport bombing in 2016, the various vehicles that deliberately plowed into tourists and pedestrians at Berlin's Christmas markets. In central Barcelona in 2017, on London Bridge, at Finsbury Park, the bombing in the Manchester Arena during a concert in 2017, and the Christchurch mosque attack bombing which just preceded the Colombo attack. These were all terrible events, played out and echoed across the world through the news and social media. But humankind is amazingly resilient, and society has short memories. After the initial horror and introspection, these cities all bounce back. To borrow a cliche, the world sadly moves on. The Easter attacks are a terrible one-off moment in the pages of history. And I firmly believe that Sri Lanka has what it takes not only to recover, but to shine brightly again on the global tourism stage. In preparation for this evening, I asked Sanath for suggestions on what I should cover in my speech, bearing in mind that you haven't even started your main course yet, so please feel through all the bits and pieces on the table. So as not to bore everyone to tears in the interlude between the soup and the main course, he suggested I share my thoughts on what the public and private sector could do to boost Sri Lankan tourism, and if there are any lessons to share from Dubai. I thought an exposition on tourism tactics might be a bit heavy, but he assured me you were all up for it, so here goes. First, I want to say up front, You're sitting on a treasure trove. Sri Lanka is an amazing treasure trove for tourism. If we're looking at tourism potential based on nature, resources, culture, history, Sri Lanka has it all. You are probably one of the few final bastions in this region when it comes to unspoiled island nation destinations. You have lush emerald peaks, spectacular waterfalls in the hill country, miles of beautiful beaches, tea plantations, nature parks, colonial buildings, cuisine, culture, religious attractions, and to top it all, you have a naturally hospitable people. That is so important here because so many other countries in the world don't have that. When Dubai embarked on its journey to become a global city and destination, it had little to none of these advantages. Okay, it had a stretch of beach, a historical trading area around the Dubai Creek, and sand dunes, but that's about it. Now look at Dubai today. The city has built a global destination and a global name for itself, more or less out of nothing, except a bold vision, a strong belief in its destiny, and plenty of sheer grit to mobilize everything it had at its disposal. And what Dubai didn't have, natural attractions, infrastructure, systems, policies, and so on, what it didn't have, it created. The public and private sector worked symbiotically and hand in hand towards clear and shared goals. Dubai's transformation wasn't an accident. It was very much planned and driven by the country's leaders. They were serious about building a tourism industry, and they were not afraid to think big and think bold. From that bold thinking, Emirates Airline was born in 1985. Today, we are the world's largest international airline. From that bold thinking, Dubai Airport went through several phases of expansion and improvement. Today, it's one of the world's busiest airports. From that bold thinking, Dubai created and marketed the world's first 7-star hotel, the Burj Al Arab. Again, from that bold thinking, Dubai carved out the Palm Jumeirah from the sea, adding miles of seafront to Dubai's land bank. It's a mega project visible from space. Today, the Atlantis Hotel sits on this man-made peninsula, together with hundreds of other hospitality, retail, leisure, F&B, and high-value residential developments. And from that bold thinking came the world's tallest building, the world's biggest shopping mall, the Dubai Opera, the Dubai Metro, roads, water parks, themes, golf courses, zip lines, and so on. I can go on. I'm not trying to blow the trumpet of Dubai. It's simply a focused vision that was executed well, according to some of the things I'm going to talk about. And it wasn't a build and they will come. Let's try our luck, inshallah approach. No, sir. The tourism board promoted Destination Dubai aggressively and relentlessly around the world. They roped in the private sector and offered resources and incentives to develop tourism products. To do joint marketing, create commercial deals, partner on citywide activities like the Dubai Shopping Festival in the early years, and more. Emirates, as the flagship airline for Dubai, has a prominent role in that strategy, not surprisingly. To this day, we promote Destination Dubai in the air and on the ground through our commercial sales teams, our marketing campaigns, our global sponsorships, etc. Basically, through every channel we have. Why? Because we're vested in it. What's good for Dubai is good for Emirates Airline, and vice versa. Because the vision set by the leaders, the strategy for Dubai is clear. We know our role, we know we are working with other like-minded entities in this endeavour, and we're empowered by our owners to deliver. Now, tourism is a key economic pillar for Sri Lanka. I know the health of the industry is high on everybody's agenda. Putting aside the recent setbacks, how serious are you in the global competition for tourism dollars? What is the appetite for big thinking and bold moves? Let's start with visas. We all know that visa restrictions are a mental hurdle for many people when it comes to making travel choices. It's a hassle we could all do without. To be here with you this evening, I paid a small fee for the business tourist visa. My wife, who had accompanied me on this trip, did not have to pay for her entry visa, as she is purely here on a leisure visit. 2 of us, 2 visa requirements, and 2 different processing routes. Why not just do away with the whole rigmarole? On the 1st of August, Sri Lanka reintroduced and expanded its visa-free entry scheme for EU citizens and those of 20 other nations. That's a positive and welcome step in the right direction, but frankly, it isn't a groundbreaking move or a standout initiative on the global tourism market. So now visitors to Sri Lanka from these 30-plus countries don't have to pay for their visas, but they still need to fill out online forms or make time to obtain their visas, whether on arrival or ahead of time. Tourists from the other 100-plus nations around the world still need ETAs or visas in advance of their arrival into Sri Lanka. What if we could abandon reciprocity principles and throw open Sri Lanka's doors so it becomes the most welcoming nation on the planet? What if we could do with any sort of form filling altogether for travellers already on the visa-free program, and instead use innovative ways to manage the security requirements, for instance through biometric technology at the airport in this case? So is there any room for bold thinking when it comes to something as legalistic, bureaucratic, and entrenched in tourism as visas? Let's have a look at the Malaysia Second Home Scheme, which I think is an interesting approach that takes a multi-entry visa or long-staying visa program to the next level. Promoted by the Malaysian Tourism Authority and the Immigration Department, this program lets foreigners stay in Malaysia for a period of 10 years, if they meet certain criteria. Foreigners who want to participate in this scheme have to be from a country with whom Malaysia has diplomatic ties. Fair enough. They must demonstrate that they have the financial means to support themselves with a 10-year visa duration. Basically prove that they won't be a burden on the host country. Again, fair enough. Once enrolled in the My Malaysia Second Home Scheme, foreigners can bring their spouse with them to Malaysia, their unmarried children under 21, and even their parents. They can buy property in Malaysia, send their kids to school there, hire a domestic helper, work part-time if they have skills to offer in specific priority sectors, bring in the income they earned overseas without being taxed, and of course spend it all in the welcoming land of Malaysia. To date, over 40 to 50,000 people have enrolled in this program, contributing to Malaysia's foreign currency receipts from tourism each time they visit. Many have actually purchased second homes there for holiday, for retirement, for investment, which is a further boost for developers and communities. And above all, these foreign visitors become vested in the destination. I'm not saying that Sri Lanka should replicate Malaysia's second home scheme, but don't throw the idea out. Just think about it. What's the spirit of the program? Reducing or removing visa barriers to attract visitors is great, but in the face of stiff competition from other global destinations, I think there's a case to look at bold and innovative ways to attract repeat visits and command a bigger share of wallet from foreign visitors, especially those of certain financial means and lifestyle demographics. Sri Lankan tourism has enjoyed a great period of development in the 10 years after the country closed the chapter on a long period of civil war. The road system has proved amazingly well. There are new facilities for tourists and new hotels have mushroomed, offering a broader and more interesting mix of accommodation choices. The quality of hotels in Sri Lanka is first class. I rate them personally very highly. Take it from someone who has traveled widely and perhaps too frequently for his wife's liking. Everybody's immediate concern is getting visitor traffic back on track. But I'm going to risk saying something counterintuitive, which is keep building. There's still plenty of room and opportunity for further development in Sri Lanka. You have swathes of coastline and assets of land ripe for foreign investment currently unattended. And you should not neglect these opportunities. In the short term, to do what it takes to stimulate and support tourism recovery, but keep an eye on the game plan for the next 3, 5, 10 years. Incentives, tax holidays, public-private partnerships. Use all the tools at your disposal to maintain foreign investment and track more for tourism development. Where's the future opportunity? I'm putting my betting chips on Asia, from places like India, China, Indonesia. New groups of millennial and Gen Z travelers who are environmentally and socially conscious, active silver travelers, you're looking at one, female travelers, and so on. Start developing the tourism products to cater for these new travel priorities. Cruise tourism is also another area of opportunity. It's one of the fastest growing leisure segments globally. The Cruise Line Industry Association estimates that over 40 million people worldwide will travel on cruise ships annually by 2030, compared to 26 million in 2017. How much of the pie does Sri Lanka want? In Dubai, the maritime tourism sector is expected to contribute more than $500 million to Dubai's economy by 2030, which is why plans are underway to develop a brand new Dubai cruise terminal at Dubai Harbour. And despite the ongoing tensions in the Straits of Hormuz, Dubai closed its 2018-2019 cruise season in August with 850,000 visitors from 152 ships. You have an unbelievable port in Colombo, and plenty to offer cruise visitors when ships night stop or if they are home-based here. You've lots to offer, whether in terms of shore excursions or day trips and overnight stays in the hill country. You've got the Indian Ocean archipelago at your doorstep, the Bay of Bengal coastline, the Andaman Sea, and so on. The opportunity is there to accelerate the development of your cruise business and expand the range and quality of a cruise product offering to operators. So, what about the role of the national carrier in the tourism strategy? And I understand the trials and tribulations of Sri Lankan airlines continue to be a topic of heated debate. The airline has incurred significant losses, and its future debt obligations are daunting. There's been talk about offering a big stake in the airline for a foreign investor to come into the picture. But from a privileged standpoint, as an observer looking at the situation from the outside in, I'd hazard an opinion this may not be the best approach. With the current aviation industry outlook and Sri Lanka's own tourism ambitions, taking your destiny in your own hands could be a better option. Air connectivity is essential and is key to attracting international visitors. Therefore, even if flag carriers are a rather antiquated concept, there are advantages of having a home-based airline that can support the national tourism strategy and I believe can be profitable. The question is, how closely should its business model be aligned with the nation's tourism goals? What are the projected source markets considering the airline's operating realities? Where can it position itself so that it is in a place of strength and can grow a competitive advantage? The answer may become clearer after a root and branch review of the business model. As a career airline executive, I take the liberty to suggest the airline should focus on building up a network in Asia, not so much in Europe. Procure good, reliable workhorses like the new 320 line, the Neos that are the 320-200 Neo and the 321, some of which Sri Lanka already has. Negotiate a deal for about 30, maybe 40 of those. Keep the fleet simple and build a solid route network in Asia and the immediate environment. Let the foreign carriers do the rest and enter code-share partnerships where it makes commercial sense. Sri Lanka's main international airport at Colombo is actually in tip-top shape. All that needs doing there is to keep it up and keep your skies open. Constantly refresh the facilities and product offering for travellers and airlines, and invest in technology to ease the customer journey and serve airline customers better. With all that in place, foreign carriers will naturally come knocking, especially if you have a strong marketing machine to push things along. Right now, more than ever, Sri Lanka could do with a master orchestrated PR and marketing exercise on the global stage, something that Sanat mentioned earlier. Recapture the interest and imagination of travellers and travel players on the world stage, and grow your reputation as a tourism powerhouse. With all that Sri Lanka has as a destination, there's plenty of marketing material. What it needs is a good story, one that stands out and one that sticks. Think big, think visual, consider the use of celebrities for global impact if necessary, then get the word out. Forget old-fashioned trade shows and look at how the Sri Lankan story can be told in the new world of digital advocacy and Google search wars. Be creative, like Singapore tourism, and what the hit movie Crazy Rich Asians did for Destination Singapore, or Lord of the Rings did for New Zealand, or Game of Thrones did for Croatia. When building a brand, whether for a destination or a product, you've got to be prepared to put resources behind it, drive it across all the channels you can touch, and sustain it. Most importantly, sustain it. If you think about what Emirates spent on our campaign with Hollywood star Jennifer Aniston, that was a $6 million spend on fees alone for her. And then there were multiples of that to get the campaign up and running. As brand campaigns go, we got the impact we wanted, we got our return on investment, and people still today recall and talk about that particular ad. Similarly, the global visibility of the Emirates brand at major sports events is not an accident. We ploughed in hundreds of millions of dollars into strategic sponsorships over the years, and we've used clever marketing and PR to amplify and leverage those assets. We treat these as long-term investments. Emirates' relationship with the English football club Arsenal began in 2004, when we got the naming rights for their stadium. That's 15 years ago. And we've recently extended it until 2028, which is an example of commitment. That's a long-term view. That's what building a brand is all about. So, smoothing the visa process, developing the right tourism products, supporting local operators, and incentivizing investments for tourism development, that's all par for the course. But without marketing, no one is going to know all the wonderful things happening here. It's important to get the word out there on the global stage to travelers who have a dazzling array of other competing destinations to choose from. Sri Lanka has so much to offer, but you've got to believe in your product, in your potential, and to get out there to make things happen. Emirates is a big fan of Sri Lanka, having served this market since 1986, and I'm personally a big fan of Sri Lanka, and I believe that collectively you can galvanize the next tourism renaissance for this amazing country. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.
Individuals. I'm going to be inviting the Honourable Prime Minister and Mr. Okwata on the stage to actually hand over those posthumous awards to those that remain to accept them. So we have...
And he did well in his realm at school, a gold medal for oratory, represented the school in Hong Kong. But he was only 19 when he joined the Ceylon Theatres Limited, a company founded by Sir Chittampuram Gardiner. And in one of the biggest transactions in commercial history of that time, when Sir Chittampuram Gardiner bought over Millers Limited and Cargill's, Cyril Gardiner was a signatory. and his signature was on the check. And he went on to be appointed the chairman and managing director of Millers Limited, a director of cargoes, as well as Ceylon Theatres. Having secured the General Motors agency, he started a very successful automobile business and was the Vauxhall, Buick, and Riley, or should I say shares therein. And he was Greetings and welcome to the Hotel Association of Sri Lanka of Business, Hotels, and you're going to be hearing some more about the tension that has characterized this community of those in the industry are also notable. Now we have a sponsor for this event today, and we're grateful to and making it possible for us to have this event. We're also particularly privileged to have with us visiting, and so I would like very much to invite for some introductory remarks of the Hotels Association of Sri Lanka. Many a fourth term as the president, and by popular choice.
And has served the community very well over these many years, and in fact, tourism in general. But whatever, we would like to invite your attention as Mr. Sanat Ukwata addresses this audience. Now, for the foreseeable time ahead, we might even venture to suggest that you avoid an orthopedic situation by shifting the position of your chairs, that you don't have to look over your shoulder for too much time. So, if you adjust, you'll be much more comfortable as you listen to Mr. Sanat Ukwata.
Good evening, Honorable Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Honorable Harsha De Silva, Minister of Economic Reforms and Public Distribution, Professor G. A. Pires, Excellencies, our keynote speaker of this evening, Sir Tim Clark and Lady Clark, friends from the media, my colleagues from the industry, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you all this evening to this beautiful venue here. And before I commence, I would like to give my special thanks to Krishan from John Keys Holdings and Jit from Cinnamon Hotels and Leisure for their fantastic support they gave us to make this event a reality. And also I would like to thank my CEO, Amal, and her team for arranging a fabulous evening today. Thank you. I feel honored today to represent this prestigious association, the Hotels Association of Sri Lanka, for the 4th consecutive time as the president. This is our 54th annual gathering. And for a little over half a century, this association has been represented by men and women who have dedicated their blood, sweat, and money to get where we are today. I would like to dedicate this evening to predecessors who have built the foundation for our industry. We are an industry that has inspired so many. Our industry, which is very much homegrown, is built on generations of people who have committed themselves to hard work and prosperity of our motherland. As our association celebrates 54th year, I wish to acknowledge some of the historic legends of our industry who has contributed to its growth and prosperity. People like Mr. Herbert Kure, Mr. George Ondachi, Mr. Saparamaju, Mr. Askar Musaji, Mr. Cyril Gardiner, Professor Tony Furkan, Mr. Radna Sivaratnam, and even my father, Mr. U.K. Edmund, all started when the hotel and tourism industry was at its infancy. These past legends, of course, Professor Furkan, I think we gave him an award last year. They all come from very diverse backgrounds, from different religions and ethnicities, and from across the country. But they all had one thing in common. They had faith. Faith in our country, faith in our industry, and most of all, faith in our people. The foundation laid by our industry's legends paved the way for more recent icons in our sector, inspiring celebrated leaders like Mr. Hiram Kure, Mr. Harry Javaradana, Mr. Mayu Fernando, Mr. Dhammika Pereira, Mr. Het Tigodo, Mr. Sudhana Rodrigo, Mr. Ravi Tambaya, Mr. Abbas Yusuf Ali, the Hydramani family, Mr. Bob Kundambal, Mr. Ajit Vijaysekara, and Mr. Chandra Vikramasinghe. All are living examples of people who have risked their hard-earned money and kept investing in our country to create world-class products. They are inspiring leaders who have always shown faith in our country and in our industry, no matter the challenges that came their way. Whether it's a tsunami, terrorism, or an epidemic, there are people who believe in our hospitality, our rich biodiversity, our cultural heritage, and the uniquely authentic product we offer to our visitors. There are leaders who fervently believe that we are second to none, and they have passed on this belief to their children and even to their grandchildren. It is a great pleasure for me and the rest of the industry to see their children and grandchildren carry on this dream that they have inherited and to keep their faith and conviction alive. I consider myself fortunate to serve in a committee with this talented young generation of hoteliers, to learn from them and to guide them whenever there is a need. We would like to see more Sri Lankans follow them and join this success story. Today we are presenting posthumous awards to two outstanding individuals, Mr. Cyril Gardiner and Mr. Radna Sivaratnam. They were pioneers and torchbearers who blazed a trail in our industry and were a source of inspiration to me as a young man. This year has been a challenging and tragic year for all of us. On Easter Sunday, innocent people visiting hotels and praying at churches were brutally targeted and murdered by terrorists for the first time in our history. Our hearts and prayers go out to the families and loved ones of those who were affected by this barbaric act of terrorism. We pray for the loved ones they lost and hope that the collective prayers of our nation may bring them some peace and solace. The Easter Sunday attacks were quickly followed by localized civil unrest, attacks on Muslim shops and homes, and an uncontrollable rumor mill that sought division and mistrust. The consequences of these events have been debilitating to our country. It has bared our consistent failure at nation building. It has shown that despite the whole decade after the end of our civil war, that we are yet to win peace for all our people. Our industry is yet to recover from this tragedy, and the unfortunate likelihood is that it will take another year to get back to where we were rather. A once thriving industry, when everything going for it is today in the throes of a crisis. It is in this backdrop I would like to offer our association's appreciation and the industry's our industry's appreciation to Sir Tim Clark for accepting our invitation and coming all the way in spite of his very busy schedule. Sir Tim, thank you very much for being here this evening and for your grateful support. Our association is strongly of the opinion that we can get ourselves out of this crisis situation if the government and the industry collectively move swiftly and decisively on a roadmap to recovery. I wish to talk about 3 important steps on that today. Our first step in our recovery roadmap following the Easter Sunday's attack, with the aim of safeguarding livelihoods of our employees, we lobbied hard with the government to offer a financial relief package to our members, which I'm sure all of you are well aware. We thank the Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Harsha De Silva, and of course Honorable Finance Minister and the Governor Central Bank, and particularly Mr. Dinesh Viyakodi and our Honorable Minister, who really worked hard to get this package through. The government's swift action in this regard has saved many jobs and livelihoods. The aftermath of the Easter Sunday's attacks showed us how many people were dependent on tourism for their survival. Hotels, food and beverage suppliers, transportation companies, even tuk-tuk drivers, vendors, guides, photographers, printers, videographers, musicians, religious, cultural and wildlife sites, they were all affected and are still suffering as a consequence of this collapse in tourism. The importance of our industry to the national economy is immense and must not be underestimated. We are the low-hanging fruit for Sri Lanka's economic revival. Therefore, we all must act to protect and grow this industry. Our second step in the roadmap is to enhance country's marketing arm and roll out the promised international PR and marketing campaign. During our association's AGM last year, I'm sure most of you remember, we are grateful to have the Honorable Prime Minister's presence, and at which point we requested for the government to roll out the much-delayed destination branding and marketing campaign. We were confident that nearly a decade after the end of our civil war, Sri Lanka would finally launch a much-awaited marketing campaign. In October 2018, during our AGM, none of us ever imagined the constitutional crisis that was to follow a few days later, or the impending horror Easter attacks. Both of these have had a major negative impact on our industry, with the Easter Sunday's tragedy bringing us to our knees. Yet, despite 6 months following this tragedy, and the commendable support and the leadership that our Honorable Minister and Mr. Kishu Gomez of the Sri Lankan Promotional Bureau, and even Mr. Johan Jayaratne, Chairman of Sri Lanka Development Authority, Mr. Upali Ratnayaka, the DG of Sri Lanka Promotion, Sri Lanka Sri Lankan Tourism Development Authority. In spite of all the support we got from all of them, yet the government has failed to launch a global PR and marketing campaign. Every single tourism service provider registered with the Tourism Development Authority makes a financial contribution towards the promotion and marketing of Sri Lanka as a tourism destination. Yet, despite over a decade since the end of Civil War, these funds remain unutilized. Every minute that we fail to launch this campaign has an opportunity cost for Sri Lanka. We lost potential tourists, potential revenue streams, and potential investments. We also lose the potential use of these monies had they remained in the hands of the private sector. It is in light of this realization, following a decade of government inaction, that we propose to reform the Promotion Bureau and to transfer the control of the Promotion Fund to Tourism Joint Council in a bold, new, and ambitious private-public partnership. We are convinced that the industry-led Tourism Joint Council will be better suited to carry out the responsibilities of promotions as opposed to a Promotion Bureau tied up with bureaucratic red tape. The Joint Council represents all actors in the tourism industry that are directly impacted by the consecutive government failures in launching a promotional campaign. Tourism is a fast evolving product. It has to respond to fast enough trends, opportunities, and threats. Fast is sadly not something synonymous with the bureaucratic red tape. A fund that has remained idle in government's hands for a decade is evidence that the monies are better off in the hands of those who contribute towards it and are directly impacted by how much money is used. Today, many countries in the world over control tourism funds, hand over tourism funds to the private sector. It is a trend today. In Germany, for example, 70% of the tourism promotional funds come from the government and 30% from the private sector. Yet, 100% of the administration of these funds is given to the private sector. So we propose a similar solution for Sri Lanka. We request the government to bring forward and for Parliament to approve amendments to the Tourism Act that will transfer control and direction over the Sri Lankan Marketing and Promotion Fund to the Joint Tourism Council and impose enhanced reporting obligations by the Tourism Joint Council to the Promotion Bureau and the Tourism Development Authority to ensure transparency and accountability for utilization of this promotions fund. Yes, sir. We are confident that by giving control and ownership over the country's marketing to the industry itself, we can hire right talent and make decisions that will respond to challenges and capitalize on new opportunities as they emerge without being burdened by bureaucracy. Thank you. My third and final point we propose is on the recovery roadmap is to reform taxation and tourism in the tourism industry. Tourism is one of the highest tax industries in the country. We pay as much as 20% on tax on turnover, plus service charge 10%, and exorbitant licensing fees, and unfair local government taxes. I think we have talked about this many times, and we hope at least the government to come will address this issue on our behalf. So after East Sunday's attacks, the government took the bold and right decision to support the industry by lowering VAT to 7% for our industry. We hope and request the new lower VAT will continue and it's not a temporary measure. We also thank the government for exempting the hotel industry from paying NBT on foreign currency receipts. One of our key requests last year was for the government to grant the tourism industry export status and treat us the same way as other exporting industries. NBT is not paid by other exporters, therefore we welcome the NBT exemption. However, by limiting the exemption from the NBT only to foreign currency receipts, the government has ignored the no spending by tourists in Sri Lanka is conducted in Sri Lankan rupees and not in foreign currency. That is because the rupee is the legal tender in Sri Lanka. We are prohibited by law from charging and accepting payments in foreign currency. And the tourists, this is within Sri Lanka. Tourists have already converted their foreign currencies to rupees before they spend at our hotels. Even the local travel agencies that most of our inbound bookings are coming from have advised that it is against the monetary law for local companies to transact in foreign currency, which is correct. Based on this premise, travel agencies refuse to pay hotels in foreign currencies that they receive such payments in. As hotels are compelled to receive their monies in rupees, this creates an NBT liability. This means that we, the hotel industry, are denied the fruits of our own trees. The NBT exemption for hotels by limiting it only to foreign currency receipts is therefore ignorant of the fact that tourism is an invisible export and not a visible exports like the textiles or tea. We therefore request the government to give more clarity on this issue and to either classify all receipts by the hotel industry as NBT exempt, irrespective of currency, or to liberalize the monetary law that we are able to accept payments in foreign currency in order to fully benefit the NBT exemption. The reformed taxation must not only be limited to income of hotels. We believe taxation must be rational and sensible in all other inputs for tourism. This requires reducing exorbitant consumption tax on food, beverages, alcohol, especially wine, the restaurants, bar and hotel licensing, and even construction inputs. We are aware that the government has embarked on a progressive reduction or elimination of most of these input duties. We commend this bold initiative, but encourage the government to aggressively pursue this reduction and fast-track it in areas that can boost the sectors that service the tourism industry, such as restaurants, bars, and entertainment. Finally, we also appeal to the government to introduce tourism master plan for sustainability and to develop that master plan with all stakeholders in the industry, including airlines, travel agents, hotels, and the general public. Our association wants Sri Lanka to be an emblem of sustainable tourism. We are concerned by the future risk of tourism and overcrowding to our cultural and wildlife assets and infrastructure. We therefore call for a bold, new progressive tourism master plan that will, among others, guide us to avoid and manage and address those risks when they arise. We are determined to prepare to address these issues and convinced that such preparation needs to be given priority over setting high visitor numbers. A well-planned and properly regulated tourism will be sustainable in the future. Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Minister, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we have had one of our most challenging and difficult years to date. But with the determination and commitment from us and the government, whether present or future, I can assure you that the best days of tourism yet to come. Let us all embark on this journey in a responsible manner. Our association is there to join hands with the government to achieve this success for our nation. Thank you very much.
that they were in this room. And the pictures that followed, the potential that lies within our land. Just before we move to
Professor GLPDs and distinguished guests and friends. I never knew that I had to sing for my supper. I thought my last song was at the calendar meeting and I was coming here to just enjoy myself. But it's the time that the tourist industry took response to the industry. And our job is really to fund them. If you look at the plan, if you look at the programs, plans and policies for next 5 years, the quickest and the largest employment creator is going to be the tourism industry. But we have to decide, is it going to be open-ended, or are we going for a limit of about 5 million to 6 million tourists and upgrade ourselves? That's the major policy decision that we have to debate in the next few years. I would prefer the first option of having a cap on about 5 to 6 million, but certainly ensure that we earn more. But it means a lot more. It's not only you are undertaking promotion, which I have agreed to, but on a certain condition. That you also undertake training and the government can fund it. We have no good hotel schools. We have no, we don't produce the good chefs. We have to do that. But we made many, and also remember you got to train twice your need, because half will be abroad. Other half will return. But we made great strides, though we couldn't implement some. We planned out a fair number of tourism zones, one in Iranavila, one in Dedua, which is virtually ready to take off. Both those are ready to take off. Akulala, Koggala, Goa town itself, Deniyaya, Rakwana, and a bigger one which has been under plan on the side of Ohia, on the boundary of Horton Plains. So these are big ones. Then how do we develop and promote the Mattala airport so that tourism will have 2 airports? We've been successful in starting off the Jaffna International at Palali, but we have a big problem. That is that we have no hotels. And basically Iran has a monopoly. So who is going to break it? The 3 hotels he owns 2. The 3 5 stars. So in any case, for stars, so we've got many other areas. We've marked out Mana, Punarim, Vadamarachi, how we develop the eastern coast. Now they want to fly into Batiklo. I've agreed that we expand the Batiklo runway up to about very close to Lepers Island so that you could take a 70-seater in. So the basic infrastructure, the plans are there. It's your promotion which is your job, it's training which is your job, and I think our job is basically look at policies and programs. So I don't want to take any more of your time, though Professor GLP will disagree with me. The only way to get in forward is you met our candidate today, get him in.
So, at this juncture, we shall proceed with what is commonly referred to as the
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.